Switch. All right. Well, thank you. I think we'll get started. Thank you for coming. This is hopefully it will be an entertaining presentation on how to allow you to carry in a way that's an approved, trusted way, carry a unclassified smartphone into your work classified, confidential, sensitive work environments, where today most people have to park those phones in lockers of some sort, or they park them in a basket, or you have to leave them in your car outside in the compound, or something along those lines, which is stupid, right? It's frustrating, and you have to think to yourself every time you do it, like, there's got to be a better way. So the whole point of this is to walk you through why does that have, why is that the policy, and how can you do something different? Sorry, I've got my little clicker. I gotta make sure I use it right. This is really for make it more interesting. I'll go into this some more, but it is amazing the amount of microphones that we all have in our lives that listen to us all the time. And they do it because it has an incredible way to make money. Apple, Google, Samsung, blah, 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 Amazon, everybody makes so much money by listening and taking pictures and tracking you, et cetera, et cetera. It's gotten to the point, even your TV, your smart TVs too, everything, right? And there's consequences to this. So please read this, and if you think you know where this is, hold that thought for a second. Okay, any volunteer to say they think they know where that is? That's a documented place in the Department of Defense. Anyone? Pentagon. Nailed it. Pentagon. Actually, Pentagon and probably any headquarters, the Department of Defense that does real world mission stuff in the entire world. But this is actually about the Pentagon. This was a published article from a senior executive who was like, this place sucks. And I didn't qualify it. So my name's Michael Campbell. I was originally assigned, my background, I'm a retired military Army officer. I've been deployed 28 times. I commanded for 4 straight years in Afghanistan and Iraq. I've worked in the special ops community, the straight leg infantry world. I've worked in Congress. In my last job, I was the chief of staff for the CIO of the Army. I spent 4 years on active duty in the Pentagon. I was one of those guys that got to fly in the helicopter in and out of the Pentagon. I got to do the private jets all around the world. I have been on probably every single military base in the world at that time. And I will tell you, I agree 100% with that. The Pentagon is super inefficient. So anybody that's sitting in the audience going, oh my God, I wish we could do things better. Trust me, part of the problem is the fact that the decision-making cycles of this building have a lot of friction. Artificially created friction in this case. But this applies in a lot of places. The only place the military is truly good is actually when we finally go somewhere and deploy. Then all of a sudden, a lot of the rules get pushed to the side, and we actually just get really productive. Thank God. Here we go. So as I was saying, the whole point of this walkthrough is how do we solve this problem? How do I allow myself to carry a smartphone? The big initiative, there was a group in here earlier, maybe some of you were part of it, is mobile classified. Mobile classified, hey, that's awesome. I want to be able to carry mobile classified systems. Because then if you solve the mobile classified and you can carry the unclassified together, then you don't actually need a Pentagon anymore. Everybody can work remotely. You could be anywhere. That should be the future. That should be the goal. If I'm the CIO or the CISO or even a senior leader that's not in the IT world, that would be my vision of the future. How do I enable us to not be tied to a place? Command and leadership should be a person, not a place. But that's not going to happen overnight. We got to start somewhere, and I want to walk you through that. Okay, this is real world. I was in Europe just recently. I actually met the head of the Ukrainian Special Forces. They do everything on smartphones. And actually, before I went to Europe, I had met the head of Ukraine's telecommunications industry, essentially. And I was shocked. I was like, you mean you still have telecommunications? And they're like, heck yeah, they don't touch it. There is deliberately not targeting the telecommunications industry. So cell phone towers, if they're hit, it's an accident, and they put them right back up, and no one screws with them. Everyone is still using not radios, but smartphones. Essentially, everyone is carrying a phone to conduct real-world warfighting today, right now, in this environment. And we do it because it enables certain things. The first thing normally you would do is knock all of that out, but maybe not in the future. So it does have some significant downsides, and these are published incidents. So when you pop up a cell phone, no matter what, you just popped up at least several radios. Those radios then can be triangulated, and something bad can happen. When I was in Europe just a couple weeks ago, the hot thing was the new drone strikes that are happening. Those things are being targeted based on density of smartphones. So how do I manage and mitigate this risk to eliminate this problem? It started with just individuals being exploited on both sides, but now it's being used to target entire command centers, et cetera, et cetera. It's a significant problem. And all of us here in the US have to accept that that's going to be the environment of the future. How do we overcome this, but still allow ourselves to carry the mobile device? There we go. These are more examples of US examples in this case, and NATO. These are known problems, right? This has been published, and the exploits have been used or understood for some time. The first one was a exercise, and then the second one is a real-world analysis of the risk of carrying a smartphone. More examples. So and it's funny, they don't actually do this very often as much as they used to. It was like in the mid-2010s to 2020s, when you were doing exercises, the exploits on smartphones were used in scenarios and training exercises against you. That actually declined for whatever reason recently. But it has been shown that you can triangulate the location of an organization and a person by them using a smartphone in various different ways. And then this is the one I get super frustrated with, the US Army. Again, I think I'm qualified to say why this is a bad idea. So when you're here, when you're in the United States and you're training, you're letting everyone carry a smartphone. In a lot of cases, they have to carry the smartphone to do their job because they're not properly equipped with government equipment. But then you go and you deploy, and they take your phones away, and they don't issue you a protected government equivalent. The amount of friction to the organization when that occurs is mind-blowing. So this should be a priority to try and overcome this. And when I was here, I was in 25th Infantry. Actually, General Milley was the 25th Infantry Chief of Staff, so I worked closely with him at the time. We've deployed together. That man loves a smartphone. He stands in the hallway at the Pentagon and pounds away on his smartphone, and he hates that he has to put it in a locker and go into his office. He doesn't use his phone, like his desk phone. Now, he overcomes this because he has an enormous staff that does everything for him. So, he gets through his day. But that's what his office looks like. I mean, that's a legit photo. Obviously, I didn't make it up. Look, pen and paper. Pen and paper. How frustrating is that? And then this is the super advanced Space Force having a very important conversation. Pen and paper. because they can't use any mobile devices. And this is both in the Pentagon. The Pentagon actually has a wireless network, can't use it, because they don't allow you to carry mobile devices. So this doesn't jibe with the reality of the world. I would bet everyone here has a smartphone. Probably has used it within the last 10 minutes, maybe using it right now. That wasn't always the case. Like when I first joined the military, smartphones really didn't exist. I was made fun of here at Schofield Barracks because I carried this first one. I'm trying to move this. There we go. Oh, did I break it? There we go. It was called a handspring visor. It was a PDA that wasn't connected to the internet, but you could stick a module in it, and it would make it into a cell phone. And it was huge. You would hold it like this. And at the time, I don't know if, it looks like some of you might have been around then, smartphones were really small. That was the cool thing, the razor and the blade and all those things. And I had this huge phone, and I actually had a big headset that I would wear, and everybody made fun of me. But I could walk into a meeting, a combat infantry battalion headquarters, and take my smartphone and dock it, whip out a keyboard, and I would be doing my work on that thing. And that was like so far ahead of their time. The only other guy that did anything like that actually came out of JSOC in what today is called Delta Force area, and they were using stuff like that at the time. This is in the early 2000s. And then some of you might have been around when BlackBerry got fielded. And we were talking about this earlier in the crowd. BlackBerry at the time, early 2000s, you were rank ordered. You could tell who mattered in the room because they had a BlackBerry. And then later, you could tell how important they were based on whether they had a new BlackBerry or not, or had an old BlackBerry. But that's seriously, it was that important. And I was like, everybody was pounding away on those things, staying current, had their calendar. And I mean, all a BlackBerry really did was email and calendar, and maybe a little bit of texting. I actually got like carpal tunnel equivalent because I'd use my thumb so much to type. But you could get a lot of work done with a little mobile device like this little BlackBerry. That's not actually possible today, but the whole world shifted to the iPhone. I was actually in the Pentagon when the new iPhones came out, and they're so much better. And so some senior leaders were like, I don't want this crappy BlackBerry anymore, I want an iPhone. And then overnight, iPhones were in the building, right? It wasn't like it went through an approvals process. It was just, he wants one, get him one. And we shifted, and the whole world has shifted. I mean, everybody in their, at least in the normal professional world, or in their personal lives, is attached to the phone. Sorry. It's not working. All right. Oh, you know what? All right. How do I advance? I could do this.
I know.
Did I break it?
Locked up, yeah.
All right, 1 second. Technical difficulties. I saw the mouse moving. Yeah. Well, you can just move that little thing on top and click it. All right, 1 second. Broken the computer. Did it work? Okay. All right, maybe it started working again. Okay, so I was talking like everyone carries a smartphone. So a smartphone is the product of trillions of dollars of research and development. I mean, they're cutting edge physics. There's more capability packed into a smartphone than any government in the world could possibly ever accomplish on their own. It's been now 2 decades of research to get to the point where you have this product that is so powerful and you can carry it with you everywhere. The other thing that's interesting is the amount of time we spend on smartphones. And this is actually about 2 years old, that quote, but most people do most computing on a smartphone now, and it's just increasing. It's not decreasing. All right. There we go. Okay. And so what begins to, so we use smartphones. Everybody uses them all the time. All right, so why is the government, or in this case, the Department of Defense, say, okay, they're terrible, we can't use them? Well, it's partially all the way back in, I guess, 2013-ish. There was Snowden disclosed the capabilities of the United States' intelligence community and how they could break into smartphones. And at the time, no one knew that. A smartphone, an iPhone, for example, has 4 microphones on it. 4 microphones. Those microphones are designed to listen, take pictures, or listen and record everything. One of them is controlled by Apple, 24/7. Apple owns 1 microphone. Why? And then the other 3 are owned by app developers. And as an individual carrying this phone, you sign a big agreement, which I don't think anyone has ever read, but it basically says they have the right to listen. And then a phone, of course, has a camera in the front and a camera in the back. And you can't know if they're on or off. You can't. They're not designed. They want them to be on because, again, they're collecting information. And every single person has a thing called an ad ID, an advertising ID, that's associated with you, the user of the phone. You can't get rid of it. You can ask it to stop or limit the tracking, but you can't get rid of it. And actually, you can't even turn the phone all the way off either. Most people don't realize you can turn it off. It's still on. It can still be tracked. There's parts of the phone that never shut off. There are tons of other sensors as well. The phones are amazing. And our community, our intelligence community, has been exploiting that for a long time. If anybody's watched the cartel shows on Netflix, we were doing it, smartphone hacks, back in the 80s and the 90s. And we've just gotten better and better and better at it. We, the U.S. intelligence community, could break in, and it was a nation-state level type capability. But today, you could buy that stuff. You could buy breaking into a phone and take advantage of all of this. So, why is this? So, again, the tech companies make money off of the phone itself. They make more money off the data than they do off the sale of the hardware. And then that's great. And most individuals would be fine. I don't care. I like the convenience. But since you can't control it, you don't know if someone has taken advantage of you and has put something where they can exploit that information and use it against you. And again, we're getting to why are these things banned? And I've already touched on this already, the number of microphones. A Samsung has 2 microphones, actually a little bit more than that, but they have, and Apple devices have 4 microphones. iPads have even more than that. Some of us in the room have actually seen where you could take a phone and lay it right there and record every conversation in this room, and then use a computer to then filter it, and then keywords, do text, voice-to-text translation, and use keyword search and get all the conversations. And then you filter out what you actually wanted. So again, it's amazing technology. So security professionals, not people that provide communication. Security professionals are very aware of this. There's actually a class that you could take that teaches you how to break in and do all this kind of stuff. And so they're the ones that said, hey, all of this is at risk because of these mobile devices. And there are published incidents where someone has been exploited in every one of these categories. So in 2017, there were some very public disclosures of where smartphones were used to compromise senior leaders. And overnight, if you sold a locker for cell phones, you were in a good line of business. They popped up everywhere. The entire Pentagon was flooded with lockers. And probably every headquarters to some extent has a locker today. The intelligence community even invested in these super fancy lockers. They're like, you can like you put a phone in there and it like spins and you get a code. That kind of stuff exists. I've been to the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, brand new fancy building. They have an amazing phone locker bank. The funny thing about that one, though, no one actually uses it. They stack the phones on top because they don't want to go through the 5 minutes of unlocking the damn thing. They just want to grab their phones and run outside and pound away on them, and then they run back in and stack it and then run back to their offices. It's so frustrating. Actually, I won't go into the story, but phone lockers. And that picture was taken at a military facility because they couldn't stop me because they don't have any actual management on these things. But look at all those phones. Those are personal phones, and those are government-issued phones. There's a risk just in that process. I mean, you compromise one phone, you'll compromise every phone in that stack. But that's the policy. That's the rules. And every time you see that, you must think to yourself, this has got to be stupid. And there's a cost to this approach. Like, so again, all the phones are stacked up in the hallway, and then you walk into the desk cubicle area, and you're tied now to a space, right? You have a space where you work, and you can only use your computer in that space. You might be able to disconnect it and carry it somewhere, but it doesn't connect it anymore. And you have a phone number, but it's tied to the phone at the desk. And my favorite, like if you just solve this problem, like if all of us were working together and we had a meeting in the Pentagon, I keep using the Pentagon because it's the easiest example, all of us would have pen and paper. And I'm like, hey, great meeting, let's schedule the next meeting. And you're all like, well, I don't know when I'm available. I'll have to go back to my desk and look at my calendar. It's probably changed. And then we have to figure out the next meeting, which might take weeks to get us all back together again. So look at all the inefficient productivity. And then, of course, I'm disconnected, so I don't have relevant information, important information that I could be using while I'm sitting in the meeting. And this thing called dark time is, again, it's a published study. As an individual consumer, you're doing stuff on the move, and there's an efficiency to that. Imagine from a work perspective, in a classified work environment where you're not allowed to carry a phone, how much wasted productivity do you have when you just walk down the hallway, or you're going to lunch, or you're standing in the foyer, or you're whatever. I mean, there's all this stuff that you could just take 5 minutes or 10 minutes to read an email, respond to a message, send something, click something. There's so much efficiency that you gain just in this simple administrative use case. And you can't because you don't have a phone. You've got to go back to the desk. And some people never go to their desks. Like their desk is where they check in the morning and then they're busy all day and then they come back to their desk at night. And then they complain because they have to stay at the office all night. Some people get so pissed off though, they'll just cheat. They'll carry the phone in anyway, which people do. Or they come up with their one-off solutions, which people do. I get it. I was one of them. Most people in the military, actual green suit military, are in the job for such a short amount of time. They're like, I don't care if it's going to take more than a few months for me to solve this problem. It's not relevant to me because I'll be gone. So I need something to solve the problem right now, and they'll take risk. Again, solve the mission. I get it. I was one of those people. Solve the mission. But there's a risk to that. So you're banning phones, not giving anybody a good option. So people come up with their own one-off solutions. And this really happens in deployed environments because, mission is the most important thing. And then this is a really big one. Now, I understand that the regular military has challenges with recruiting and retention right now. And that's just the regular military. The very special type organizations where the workforce is much more highly sought, typically in the classified spaces, et cetera. Retention and recruiting is a freaking challenge. And people will not take the job. I was just at the CIA last week. They will, imagine, you got a job at the CIA. College kids are like, that's awesome. And they're like, but you can't carry a phone. And they're like, oh, what? I can't carry a phone. And they won't take the job. They won't take the job. Because they go into these black holes. And it's frustrating. It's not the modern person does not like that. Older people are like, why the heck do I want to be connected? But young people, the next generation, they expect to be connected. So recruiting and retention. Oops, more challenges. Here we go. The other one is, again, I get frustrated. There is so much money. I worked for the CIO, right? I know. I saw the budget. I was part of the budget cycle. The U.S. Army, I don't know about the rest of the DoD, or the other service branches, the U.S. Army spend at that time, and it's only gone up, $11 billion every year on enterprise phones. Phones. Desk phones. And they continue to spend it. That money's not going away. At that time, there was $1 billion a year went into copper switches, two-wire, old-school oscillating switches on military bases, which are so old that they're the only people still using them are military bases. And at the time, $1 billion went to and this isn't old stuff in this picture, but you can imagine this is all wired. So everybody's still, because you can't carry a mobile device, you got to have something, so you're giving them wired stuff. And even though you get a laptop, for example, you're wiring it into the wired stuff. And there's a lot of cost, a lot of friction, because you got to wire everything. You can't just pop up an access point and have everybody bring their stuff and connect. That would be so much faster and so much cheaper. And then I get printers. You go, thousands of printers. Maybe tens of thousands of printers are bought every year. And then, of course, pens and paper. But with that money, I mean, all you have to do is say, look, I'm not going to replace the wired phones anymore. I'll let them die. I'll take that money and I'm going to buy wireless. And I'm going to do it the right way. That's it. You just solved your problem. And this is another frustrating solution. And this is the goodness out of this is people must know there's a big problem. The fact that even exists as a course of action on the table, bring your own phone. So why would that even exist as a course of action? I'm a military leader. I've got the largest defense budget in the world. I can't afford to give people a mobile phone. I want you to pay for it. I want you to pay for the smartphone that you're going to use to do my work. But that exists. This article is just about a month old. There are people here in this base that are pursuing this strategy. And again, I get it. They don't know how to overcome they can't stop. They haven't figured out a way to stop spending money on the wired, the legacy. So there's no money to spend on this. So I got to get somebody to spend money. I'll get the soldiers and the airmen and the sailors to spend money on their own stuff. And so this is a big initiative. And it was funny. So it shifts the burden. So I was walking here today, and my sister says, hey, look, homeless people have phones. And so I was like, homeless people have phones? How's that possible? The government can't afford to give me a phone. How's a homeless person got a phone? So I was walking to work to here today, this morning, and a homeless person, which there's a lot of them around here, had a phone. So I stopped. I said, hey, how'd you get that phone? And he goes, there's a government program to give me a phone. The government bought it for me. The government bought me a phone. There's a website. I can send it to you. I looked it up when I got here. I didn't believe him. The government buys phones for homeless people, but the Department of Defense, the largest, richest organization in the world, can't afford unclassified phones for people. And of course, there's risks in this. Now, again, I get it. Like this, if you solve the problem because you expediency, I need a problem to solve this right now, right this second. This is a fast way, right? Everybody's carrying a phone already. I'll just give them an app, click on the app to get access to government stuff, right? But it is literally a Band-Aid. You can't deploy with them. You can't carry them into the work environment where it's classified. So I'm Band-Aiding the problem. I might even be making the problem worse because I'll get used to using these for my work-related stuff, but then I get called up to go on mission and I can't use it. What do I use? So anyway, this is another cost. And then, again, getting to operational security. So the presentation right before me was about commercial solutions for classified. Commercial solutions for classified is a program to allow you to carry a mobile classified device, So again, it's the vision, it's the future. We want this, right? Those are extremely challenging programs to get through. And it's very few people actually have those type of devices, very few people. if the gentleman who was here's numbers are right, it's still less than 5% of the requirement for classified is being satisfied today in the Department of Defense and in federal government. But everybody can create a classified on-the-move solution, and they do. It's like the Wild West. For a mission, if I deploy, I'll have a deployed classified mobile solution for that mission, I guarantee it. And young soldiers will use that to get the job done faster. Soldiers, sailors, airmen. And then, of course, because it's new and we haven't really set conditions for this to be a proper program, they're not considering that I just created a mobile classified environment. And all my unclassified stuff now needs to be protected too. And I've asked this question. I'm like, all right, so you're going to deploy classified mobile. What about all the unclassified that's right next to it, that's in the pocket of the person holding the classified phone? And they're like, oh, we hadn't thought about that. That's a problem. They literally just like taken back. Like, oh, that ruins our program. We don't know what to do now. Maybe they'll take that phone and set it over there while they talk on their classified phone over here. And that doesn't happen. But again, this is happening, operational security risk. The other risk is you just use the unclassified side to do everything. And I will tell you, 95, and I would say higher, but 95% of all communications that I did as a senior leader, and I carried 4 mobile devices. I had an iPad or a tablet, an iPhone, a BlackBerry issued, and I had a top secret mobile phone. I never once used that top secret mobile phone. I carried it. I made sure it worked. I never once used it. And this is in the middle of the Iraq and Afghanistan surge, right? Never once used it for anything. We did everything on the unclassified side. We would just tap dance around because it just worked better. You get on that classified thing and it was challenging. And again, most senior leaders in all of the Defense Department. So I say all this to say, all right, well, he's like beating around the bush. Tell me what we're going to do to solve this problem. How do we solve this? Okay, so there's this group, and they're not communicators. They're security professionals. They're called technical surveillance countermeasures professionals. Maybe some of you guys are in this career field. They're jerks, man. I've been with them. You know what they want to do? They typically want to take a smartphone and break it into pieces and crumble it up and stomp on it, because that's actually the best security. No mobile, nothing with a radio, nothing with a camera, nothing with a microphone. Get it out of here. I've had people in a meeting say, yep, we come here just to crumble up phones and destroy them. So they are the ones that published and encouraged and got senior leaders to basically ban mobile phones and tablets, et cetera, back in 2017, 2018 timeframe. And those bans are still enforced and typically getting more effectively deployed around the world. But they also had a way out. They wrote the way out. And I actually met the woman that was part of the committee that wrote that. And they put some things in there. They said, look, if you can physically control the camera, if you can physically control the microphone, and you can manage the radios, the high-powered radios, not all the radios, just the high-powered, the cell radio primarily, and then if you can monitor that to make sure it's being used properly, you can actually use those mobile devices. But she told me, she's like, look, when we wrote that, we thought that would never, ever, ever happen. They're like, look, that'll never happen. It's impossible. It'll never happen. But the good news is it has happened. So wireless networks actually have been approved. You can deploy a wireless network. This was actually approved about the same time that the mobile ban happened. But there was a process for deploying mobile wireless solutions into classified spaces. So unclassified wireless in a classified environment. You can have classified wireless as well. It's a perk. But unclassified wireless. So for example, the Pentagon, most of the Pentagon was wired for wireless in 2017, 2018 timeframe. And there are deployments in the world today. Now, almost all of these deployments actually ran into friction because, again, you couldn't carry the mobile devices anymore. So why would I invest in the mobile network if I can't carry a mobile device? But a process for doing this exists, and it's a step-by-step guide. So don't be afraid of that part. Then there is a solution for physically controlling the camera and the microphone and managing the radio on the mobile device itself and monitoring. That exists. There's a thing called, there's a TSG number. Classified spaces are supposed to shop off a TSG, a technical telecommunications security group or something. I can't remember the acronym. It's a list of approved products for classified space use. There's a solution for a mobile device that you can attach to a commercial mobile device, just a regular government, or a regular device that you could buy anywhere, an iPhone, Samsung phone, whatever. And you put this solution on there, and it does what they want. And it's approved all the way to SAP, SCIF, SAP. The vast majority of classified spaces are what are called collateral. So like there'll be a secret terminal right here in the corner, but this whole room becomes classified. And mobile devices have been banned. And then maybe there's a SCIF like right here or something where you got top secret, and then maybe there's another room where there's some SAP. So authorizing officials can say, hey, maybe I don't want to jump to the SAP level with this solution. Maybe I'll jump to just the collateral spaces, the administrative work spaces, and I'll start there. And then if it goes well, maybe then I'll move them into the top secret spaces. Then I'll move it into the SAP spaces, et cetera. But it gives you a way to scale. But your biggest use case is the collateral. Every single headquarters in the world is a collateral space, secret. And then you blend all this together, you actually take the operational security risk out of using a mobile device 24/7. You just improved your operational security posture because of all the stuff we talked about. I can manage the camera, I can manage the radios, I can manage the microphones 24/7. Everybody works remotely today anyway. I just drove the mission risk out of using smartphones everywhere. Now the rules, there are no rules that say you have to do that when I'm not at the office that have been published today. They're actually working on these rules, but they have not been published yet. So I've got my amazing mobile device. I'm mobile, I'm working remote, I'm protected, but I'm also now allowed to move into the collateral and classified spaces. No more phone lockers. I can walk in, I can keep my phone with me. And when that happens, you can start using the wired, all that stuff can stop being invested in and start to go away. I can start paying for wireless. I can start investing in classified solutions that are mobile, et cetera, all because of this architecture. And this architecture is being deployed today in some of the most sensitive and classified spaces in the world. But it's very cutting edge stuff. So that's one of the reasons we're here, is just to share and advocate that there is a way forward. And this is my last slide. The sad part of this is so many government offices look like that, like this guy, because they print PowerPoint and they go to a meeting and they have printed PowerPoint and they take notes all over it. And this is the office use case. And then you carry it back and you're like, man, what do I do with this thing? Maybe it's important. I better save it. And slowly but surely they build up a big old pile of paperwork in their desks. Some people manage it better than others, but I have seen that. And this is the future. There are people doing this. There actually was a program, DISA hosted it, where you could carry a smartphone and it becomes your compute platform. So this is the vision of where you could be. You could carry a mobile phone and then dock it. It's got more compute power than modern laptops. A modern smartphone, you dock it. You have a keyboard, a monitor, a mouse, and it'll make your desktop environment. It could be your phone and your compute platform. You could carry stuff with you in your bag when you're mobile. If you're at a big headquarters facility, you could just grab the phone and walk. You've got your mobile phone, you can talk on it, you can text on it. Everything's the same. You're not having to manage between different platforms. Everything's the same everywhere you go. And this exists. But you can't actually use this in DoD today because, again, you can't carry the phone. You haven't managed the risk, and you're not allowed to carry it into the actual work environment. So if everybody says, hey, this is the future, what do we do to get there? You start building out that architecture on the previous slides. So actually, I do have one more slide. My last slide. Thanks. All right. So, any questions, let me know. Want to see me afterwards, please stop in. That's all I got. Anybody have any questions? All right. Thank you.